These simple pages that I'm holding in my hand now are also one of the most remarkable letters to come from the First World War I think I've ever seen. This letter describes in great detail what the events that led up to the very famous Christmas truce, and ends with one of our Tommies saying to a German soldier as they met in no man's land, "Do you fancy a game of football?" And as has been widely covered over the last few weeks, this was one of the most remarkable events, not only in the First World War but also in the whole of British military history. The event where British soldiers and German counterparts rose up from the trenches on Christmas Day, exchanged presents, sang carols together, and then played a game of football before they went back to their trenches and unfortunately prolonged the war for another 3 years. This particular letter was written by a Lance Corporal from the 2nd Northampton Regiment to his mother, and he describes how they first of all traded insults across no man's land with the Germans. Then one of our Tommies said to the German on the other side of the no man's land, "Why don't we stop trading insults and start saying nice things to each other?" and then challenged the German to get out of the trench and meet him. And at that moment they did. And from then on, the letter describes the remarkable events of how the British soldiers took the only loaf of bread that they had, enough for just 10 men, and they gave it to the Germans. And then the Germans, in their own way, gave the British soldiers presents, cigars, a knife, little souvenirs like the button off one of the tunics of the German soldiers. And for that brief moment in time, they fraternised, they exchanged views about the war. They both said they wanted to be back home, they didn't want the war to continue. But even more bizarrely, while this particular episode was taking place, the fighting was still going on either side of them, and indeed the officers who were in charge were urging the men to get back in the trenches and start firing again. So in a sense, this little humble letter epitomises everything that you really ever knew about the First World War. The Christmas truce, the camaraderie between the soldiers on either side, and in fact, as Churchill so memorably said, it was a question of lions led by donkeys, the lions of the ordinary guys in the trenches, and the donkeys who were the officers who wanted to continue the fighting no matter what the men wanted for themselves. So as such, it's a quite remarkable letter.